the Honorable Justice Mahmood, members of the body of senior advocates of Nigeria, the guest speaker, Ambassador Christopher Kolade, CON, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say how very honored I am to have been invited to speak at this occasion. Of course, I would have been here as a member, but I think permitting me to speak is a special honor, and I really must say that I am privileged to be here to make these few remarks. And I must say that I'm here in three capacities. One, as a member of the body of senior advocates. The other, of course, as a guest in my capacity as vice president. But I'm also here as an indigene of Ikenne, the Nigerian village, the Nigerian village that has the highest number of senior advocates of Nigeria per capita, or if you like, per square meter. When I listened to my brother Silk, Paul Usoro, speaking somewhat proudly of the 9 senior advocates in Akwa Ibom State, I could not resist whispering to my Lord Justice Okoro that my brother, Osinbajo, is the 12th of the senior advocates of Ikenne, and there are 13 so far, and that I am humbly the 7th senior advocate. I became senior advocate in 2002. So I'd really like to encourage all of my brothers, especially Paul Usoro, senior advocate of Nigeria, and other senior advocates like himself. We could lend you a few if you, just to add to the numbers. My lords, senior advocates of Nigeria, the elite in every community, whether it be an ethnic, religious, or professional elite, owe a responsibility to that community. It is their duty to define the common purposes, the ethics, the vogues, what is acceptable and what cannot be tolerated in that community. Above all, they owe a responsibility to preserve the community. The future, as it were, depends on their vision or lack of it. For a professional elite such as ourselves, we owe a responsibility to ensure that the profession that preferred us to the rank that we occupy, that is the highest in our profession, continues to thrive and flourish. First, for the selfish reason that it confers greater respect and prestige on the rank we enjoy. Second, that we, being leaders in the profession, can even become more successful. But more importantly, for the altruistic and ultimately more enduring reason that we leave a profession that continues to provide livelihood and prestige for generations after us. Ultimately, the difference between the elite who build great and enduring societies or professions and those who destroy the patrimony is the extent to which the elite is willing to make sacrifices and constrain that innate selfishness that all human beings have. Put differently, the seriousness with which an elite recognizes and honors the responsibility of privilege, or perhaps what the French describe as noblesse oblige, the responsibility of nobility, or the privilege, the responsibility of the elite to act with honor, to act with integrity, to act sometimes with kindness and sometimes with generosity. So it was then the British elite, for example, the barons, who realized that their wealth and influence would always be in jeopardy if might and power remained equivalent to right. They recognized that to control the abuse of power by the king or by any one of them, they all had to agree to be subject to certain objective rules that recognized rights by virtue of one's humanity as distinct from means or power. So they agreed to sacrifice individual ambitions. They agreed to satisfy individual wealth or power for the greater good by the observance of the rule of law. And so in 1215 AD, sword in hand, they forced King John to sign the immortally egalitarian words of the Magna Carta Libertatum, the great Charter of Freedoms from which almost every other Charter of Freedom in human history has borrowed. And let me remind us of one of its famous provisions. It says, "To none will we sell, to none will we deny or delay right or justice," end of quote. The framers of the American Constitution were also such an elite. Not all were noble men. Not all were of great learning. Some broke laws. Some were outlaws. Some cheated on their spouses. Some were outright outlaws. But all of them agreed on minimum conditions for efficient and just government and how these could be preserved. These documents, which have endured centuries, are some of the most eloquent testimonies to man's ability for high thought and behavior. They have formed the basis of orderly society and respect for the dignity of the human person. Over the years, despite the travails of every kind that the core of the American elite have experienced and the American society, their elite has defended their constitution and insisted on its central values. In our own profession, the British legal establishment stand out as the exemplars in self-preservation and the preservation of the Commonwealth by the recognition of the obligations that attend the privilege of belonging to that profession, by the strict enforcement of discipline, by strict rules of entry into the profession, strict rules of preferment to the rank of Queen's Counsel, and even stricter rules in judicial appointments. They have maintained the integrity, the prestige, and the relevance of the British system of justice from generation to generation. Such is the absolute trust in the British legal system that today, by the creation of extraterritorial jurisdiction for their courts, commercial disputes from all countries of the world can, by agreement of parties, be tried in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. It is important to point out that the British legal profession attained this enviable position by rigorous self-regulation. While I served as Attorney General in Lagos State, I was called upon to write a mitigating reference for a senior Nigerian lawyer who was in practice in England. He was, at the time, on the verge of losing his license to practice in the United Kingdom. Why? He was before the Court of Appeal in respect of a criminal matter. In the course of arguing the appeal, the court hinted him that his position was unarguable, but he stubbornly persisted in that line of argument. In the end, he lost the appeal, but the court wrote to the Law Society seeking that he be penalized for pursuing an unarguable point. He came to me to ask for a character reference, as he was, of course, on the verge of losing everything. That is the nature of the discipline of that profession that insists that you cannot trivialize the legal process in any way, that you cannot hamper the legal process in any way, and that behavior of a dilatory sort will not be tolerated. A very senior lawyer in Nigeria now, after terms of settlement were agreed and the court had given judgment, returned to court to contest some issues that he had initially agreed to. He was allowed to pursue this clear abuse of process. And this sort of conduct, of course, is repeated time and time again. The legal profession in Nigeria and the system of administration of justice is perhaps one of the oldest of the professions. It has created reputations, it has created dynasties, enormous wealth, and modest livelihoods for generations. But its integrity, its credibility, and relevance are gravely threatened, and have been so for so many years now. It appears that some of the greatest acts of malfeasance are perpetrated by those of us who are senior lawyers. Creating and maintaining efficient disciplinary structures and rules is a huge challenge. Self-regulation, especially amongst us, is non-existent. There is no forum for calling out a bad egg. There's a need for a consensus on how to ensure that the greatest gift that we have received, and that gift is of a respected and revered profession, is not destroyed in our own time. It's a consensus that will be built only on sacrifice, sacrificing ethnic and other parochial loyalties where our profession is threatened. enabling a system of discipline that truly neither fears friend nor foe. Permit me to say that one is not advocating some mere moral reawakening. No, because almost all of us, and I speak also for myself, have taken advantage in one way or the other of a system where there is no consequence for misbehavior. So truly, as scripture says, all have sinned. But what one is calling for is a practical, clear-headed consensus on how to preserve our profession and the prestige of our privileges and how to avoid the indictment of history. It is our duty as professionals today, especially those of us of the inner bar, to ensure that our profession and the administration of justice system survives the assault on it by all manner of misconduct. Let me congratulate our new colleagues and wish them much greater success in the years to come. Thank you all very much.
Can we give a resounding round of applause for that?